Today on Soul Work for Moms. Growing up, surrounded by addiction and death, today's guest knows how short life is and what it's like to lose those who are closest to her. Molly Murray, mother of 3, is a birth and postpartum doula, childbirth mentor, and the owner and founder of the Cincinnati Birth and Parenting Network. Molly knows how powerful addiction and mental illness are and how quickly they can take over your everything. Molly shares how she uses the past as a catalyst rather than a hindrance to stop the cycle, jump off the train, and build a life for herself and her family. Hear her story right after this. I'm Michelle Duncan-Wilson, and last year I created a workshop for moms to get together and work through some of the things they were struggling with. The feedback from the workshop was great, but the thing I heard over and over again from the mothers was that they loved hearing all the other women who shared their struggles and strengths in mothering. I wanted to create an outlet for more of that, and the result is this podcast. Join me as I interview a different mother every week. You can listen in as women from all different backgrounds and stages in life share their experiences in motherhood. You'll also hear from expert guests who share their ideas on how to take the hard parts of mothering and use them to grow personally and spiritually. I call it Soul Work for Moms, Evolution Through Mothering. Welcome to the show. Molly, I'm so excited to have you on today to share your very inspiring story about coming from a childhood that is not the quote-unquote dream childhood, and you have turned that into a catalyst for growth and the catalyst for creating a family life that you really envision as one that you want to have for your family. And you contacted the Soul Work for Moms podcast because you wanted to share that story with other moms as an inspiration. If there's any mom out there that's listening that feels kind of held back by what you call a broken childhood, you want to share the message that you don't have to let that hold you back and that you can use that as inspiration for what you do.
Yes, that's exactly it. I grew up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. My parents actually met in Alcoholics Anonymous, and my mother was a few years sober at that point. And I guess to make a long story short, my father molested me at the age of 3, and so he wasn't in my life for the majority of my childhood. Mm-hmm. And then my mother, she relapsed when I was 11. And it started out, I think, as alcohol and then on to prescription pain medicine, or maybe it was the reverse, prescription pain medicine and then alcohol. But it quickly spiraled down to heroin.
Wow.
So I was 11 years old when she relapsed. And then I was 13 years old when she actually died of a heroin overdose.
Wow. And when you were going through that, obviously incredibly traumatizing, what was your view of what was going on at the time?
You know, growing up in Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought that that was just normal to be surrounded by people in recovery. And I think it was that this was just how life was. I didn't see it as anything different than all my friends at school, although obviously it was very different from the realities in childhood of a lot of children at that point. But honestly, I saw a lot of hope and a lot of growth and transformations happen within Alcoholics Anonymous. And my mom had a lot of fun in sobriety and sponsored women, and we went to picnics and parties and potlucks. So it was a really, looking back, even still, I think it was a really bright and positive childhood with a few really dark areas.
Okay, wow. So that, first of all, right there, I think says so much to your mindset and your choice and how you're seeing things, because I think that it would be very easy to, and I don't think anyone would blame you if you chose to look back on your childhood and to not see that.
Right.
That, first of all, is just really inspiring.
Thank you.
What happened after your mom passed away? Where did you go? Who was raising you?
I had my grandmother here in the area, but she wasn't well enough to take me in or take care of me, and that's my maternal grandmother. So I moved in with my sister, who was also in recovery, and she had a couple years sober and had 2 children of her own and was going to art school. And through a series of unfortunate events, we ended up in the Women's Crisis Center. We lived there for a year and then went to the Maysville Women's Crisis Center, and that's really where I spent my teen years, living in Maysville.
And what was life like there? Did you feel the absence of a mother and father?
I don't know. I think I blocked out a lot of that. I know that I felt a lot of times like I was spinning out of control. And that's all the way from when she was using until maybe my second child, just kind of spinning.
Yeah. So how did you say you went spinning from being a teenager living in Maysville to your second child? So walk us through having your first child and kind of take us through that story.
So I lived in Maysville from the time my mother passed away when I was 13, and I moved in with my sister and her 2 children. I went to junior high and high school there, and in my junior year of high school, I left. I dropped out of school, and I left home and came to the city. I moved in with my brother and his girlfriend, and they had 1 child at the time. And I met Nate. So Nate was my brother's good friend, and his family owned a little health food store where he's worked since 95. And Nate made music, and we started dating. So at that point, I was 17, and I decided that I needed to continue my education. I needed to do something to not stay in the realms of addiction or poverty.
Were you using at that time?
I would say recreationally.
Okay.
So I went to Cincinnati Job Corps, and they really helped me. That was a great place to live and to really get myself or snap out of the realms of poverty and addiction. And I was able to get my GED, my driver's license, and they even helped me go to Cincinnati State to get my nurse's aide certification.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And did you have your first baby by that point?
No, I had Annabelle when I was 21.
Tell me about that experience briefly. Were you feeling nervous, excited, all of it? You know, I had my daughter when I was 18, and looking back, I was nervous and I was excited, but I just had to plow through. I didn't even really have time to think or process it. So what was that experience like for you?
Right, you just do it.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was serving tables at Don Pablo's and taking care of my grandmother. So I mentioned my maternal grandmother earlier. She really helped me when I came to the city and was very supportive of my moving away from Maysville and to the city where she saw opportunity. So I was helping take care of her and running her errands and serving tables. And I had Annabelle, and it was a very traditional hospital birth. I walked in and had Pitocin, epidural, the coached pushing. But there was that moment where Annabelle came up on my chest, and I felt her little warm, wet head. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I made this child. Wow, this human came out of my body. That was incredible. So after Annabelle, I continued to serve tables at Don Pablo's, and I was living with Nate, and she was born in 2009. In 2012, I was pregnant with Patrick, still taking care of my grandmother, who at this point was nearing the end of her life and had moved in with us. And a month before Patrick was born, my grandmother passed away. And I was laying on her lap, and I was, 9 months pregnant when she made her transition. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful to be there and to notice the between life and death. Patrick was born in March of 2012, and I had hired a doula while I was pregnant with Patrick. I think my grandmother had paid for my doula, and I met with her a couple times before the birth, and I was planning a natural birth without pain medication, and it was incredible.
What made you decide to get a doula? If you had a traditional birth the first time, how did you go into that space?
Yeah, I think social media, at that time I was part of this group it was like cincymoms.org or cincymoms.com. And I had seen somewhere the word doula and started looking it up and how that could help women who were planning an unmedicated birth or were looking for a little more support in their birth.
Got it. When you contacted me about being on the show, you said that after the birth of your second child, that's when everything shifted for you.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I think the birth of Patrick gave me or instilled in me confidence that wasn't there before.
And what was the difference then? Was it because you had the unmedicated birth that gave you that confidence?
I think it's because I was screaming, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, but then I did it.
Yeah.
And to have a woman by my side that's saying, you can do this.
The doula.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say that I didn't want to be touched or talked to in that labor. Like, she was rubbing my back and saying, you can do this. And I was like, would you just not touch me? And so she backed up and she said, you can do this. And I was like, okay, will you not talk either?
I think a lot of women can relate with that, being in that situation. Yeah.
Yes. But I did.
Yeah. So in the moment, it wasn't like you were having some spiritual, even though you were probably, but you weren't feeling like, oh, this is some amazing experience where I don't think that I can do it, but I am. You were just like, get away from me. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me.
Yes. And give me the effing epidural.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's important to note because sometimes I talk to women who have these birth plans and then they have their babies and they're like, that was so hard and I lost it at the end and I didn't want to do it. And but they did. And it doesn't matter how much you were begging for that epidural. You did it. Even if you were begging for the epidural and you got the epidural, you did it.
Yes. Yes. I think that's so true. No matter how when men birth, it is intense and powerful and transformational. Each birth, whether it's your first or your fifth.
And each one is different. So different. Yeah. So you had that experience. And how long after that did you decide that you wanted to be a doula?
Pretty quickly after that. I think I was home and nursing my baby. And I saw that there was a doula training coming to Louisville, Kentucky. And I decided to do it. And Patrick was 3 months old when I took my doula training in Louisville, Kentucky. So that was in June of 2012. I came home from that training, and the first family that I supported was in September of 2012.
And did you know, once you were at that family, did you know, this is it, this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
You know, I knew after the training because I kept running into people that were looking for a doula, or I was contacted by so many families that said, I'm looking for a doula. And I thought, wow, this is really divine.
Yeah, cool. And then you also talk about intention. So talk to me about intention in that situation.
That same year, I was invited to a women's circle, and it was Rachel DeRocher's women's circle at her home. And she talks a lot about gratitude. What are you grateful for? And the power of intention. And I don't know that I had ever heard that before going to that circle. And so I just set my intentions. I maybe wrote down a few lines. I would like to thrive as a doula this year. I would like to be a gentle mother. And wow, the power of setting those intentions and watching the coming months unfold. I think that that's so powerful, gathering in circle with women, setting your intention and listening to your intuition and where that guides you.
Yeah, and it can be really easy, especially as a mother, to not want to listen to that voice of intuition, to second guess it.
Yeah.
Are you still participating in Women's Circle that you talked about?
Yes. So I moved away from the east side and we're on the west side. So we're in Cheviot, and I host a monthly Women's Circle, and women gather and we drink hot tea and we eat chocolate and we pass a talking stick and we share what are we grateful for. What would we like to release or let go? What's not serving us? And what would we like to create or bring into our lives?
It's one of those things that you don't know you need it until you go.
That's so true. Yeah, I like to say that if you are feeling called to come to a circle, just do it. Even if you have apprehensions or are feeling those nervous feelings, because I don't think it's not a setting that we're used to. I think maybe growing up in Alcoholics Anonymous and that community of people gathering and sharing has really helped me. And it also, the women's circle has filled that space.
Oh, I've never thought about that connection between AA, sharing stories, and then the sharing stories in a women's circle. I like that parallel. That's cool.
Yeah. I also attend a monthly singing circle that I just absolutely love. When I was growing up, my mother and I would sing together, and she was in a theater program through NKU, and we would sing show tunes, and the radio was always on. But when she passed away, I lost that part of myself. I moved in with my sister who maybe that just wasn't part of their life as much. At some point, I heard of the singing circle that gathers once a month, and for 2 hours straight, we sing. And it is incredible and has really given me a lot of confidence in my voice, not only my singing voice, but my presenting or talking or sharing. And that connection with other women and people has been so powerful for me.
Okay, so I want to hear more about the singing circle. So you show up, and what happens?
The woman who leads the singing circle, Shelley, she goes around and has a singing bowl. And with each woman, she makes the sound of the singing bowl. And the purpose of that is to come into this moment, to the here and now. And then immediately after, we go into song.
If someone's new and they've never been to the singing circle before, do you just listen in? Do they tell you the words first? Or
So they're all really pretty easy to learn songs and very repetitive. I would love to sing a song for you.
Sure, I would love that.
Okay. Weave and spin, weave and spin. This is how our work begins. Mend and heal, mend and heal. Take the dream and make it real. So that's one line from one song. We would sing that over and over.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So when you are going through your week, I'd imagine that you probably are singing those songs to yourself?
Yes, absolutely. And to my daughter. And my son. Oh, it's so funny to hear my son sing like women empowering songs. Of course, sometimes they interject with like just really goofy things. Yes.
Talk to me then about pulling your past into now. You're talking about using the past as a catalyst and not being held back by it. So tell me about how you breathe and live that.
So I think that growing up surrounded by addiction and death, I have a sense of how short life is, how important it is to connect with people around you and to continue to grow in whatever way that looks like for you, to be a better mother or for me, a better doula. Just the continual self-care and self-growth, knowing that we have a limited amount of time here on this earth.
That's a gift that you have that a lot of us don't have, is to really know to not take that time for granted with your babes or anyone for that matter, right?
Yes.
What's been the hardest part of mothering for you?
I like to tell my clients, and I feel this myself, that with each child you give birth to, like 10 pounds of guilt. And so I think that part is hard. I think living with grace and forgiveness and just taking it one day at a time is so important to me and how I get through that mom guilt.
And what is your favorite part about being a mom?
The giggles. I just love the giggles, all the way from my 4-month-old giggles to my 6.5-year-old giggles. Just the joy that comes from laughing with one another. I love it.
What does self-care look like for you?
My singing circles, my monthly singing circle and women's circle, those are self-care. And sometimes just getting away for a little bit. So I leave in the evenings to go to doula prenatals and postnatals and interviews. And sometimes I'll just stop at a coffee shop and just grab a drink by myself and breathe or write in my journal or make a phone call to one of my good friends.
What's your favorite way to spend time with your kids?
I love in the evenings we read. Every night before bed we read. And that is one of my favorite things to do and instill that love of reading.
Who are some women, one or two or however many, but who inspires you?
That feels like such a big question. I think that I am so inspired by all women. I think motherhood and being a woman is really a hard job. And so anyone that wakes up every day and says, I'm going to do this, I can do this one more day, is inspiring to me.
What's been the most inspiring thing for you in being a doula?
I learned so much at every single birth and even at the prenatal visits and my childbirth classes. I am constantly inspired by the families that I get to work with. Many of them came from very different backgrounds, but we all have a commonality of being mothers and families. Just that transformation process that's happening when you're pregnant is remarkable.
How would you say that being a mom has changed you?
I really felt and feel a deep sense of responsibility that I didn't before, and responsibility for the way I raise my children and what I feed them and what I feed myself and how I treat my body that I didn't have before having children.
And that's definitely true for me too. I feel the same way. That I remember being a teenager and just doing really dumb things and just thinking like walking across railroad tracks on bridges and thinking, well, if I fall and I die, my mom and dad will be sad, but oh, well, and now like I would never do that, right? Like not only just because I'm older and why would you do that, but you've got these kids that rely on you. So
yeah.
What do you want your children to know from their childhood?
I lost my mom at an early age, and she had such a huge impact on me. And I know how much she loved me and how much she believed in me. And so I want my children to have that same deep knowing that their mother loved and believed in them, even if and when I'm not here.
Molly, is there anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners?
I think it's important to share how much I focus on the here and now and how great this life is, despite the past, but that I don't forget it, that I know that addiction and death was a just amazing growth opportunity for me, and that it was my life for a reason.
And what is the one thing that you want all mothers to know?
How much support is available to them, whether it's a mom's group or a women's circle or counseling, that they are not alone, and how valuable it is to reach out for support and that it's there when they do.
Such a great reminder from Molly to reach out for support. You do not have to go through this journey alone. If you enjoyed Molly's singing, make sure you listen through to the end, because she leaves us with 2 more songs, as well as the first one that you already heard. If you'd like to connect with Molly, you can find her at Molly Murray, Murray, birthdoula.com. And the links to that, her Facebook page, her birth network, and the lyrics to the songs she sings for us are on soulworkformoms.com in the show notes. Molly's story is incredibly powerful, and it also really shows the power of intention. So this week's soul work step is to write down 1 or 2 intentions of your own. Take a minute to quiet your mind, connect with your intuition, and write down an intention that comes to mind. I would also make the suggestion to write it down in the present tense as if you are already doing it. For example, if you want to be a gentle mother, then you would write something like, I mother with gentleness. Then repeat that intention to yourself every day, several times a day if possible. The power of intention is truly amazing, which you probably already know, but it only works if you do it. If you'd like to go a little deeper with your soul work, make sure to grab your free soul work journaling sheet from today's show at soulworkformoms.com. We're going to end today's episode by listening to some more of Molly's beautiful voice, but until then, let me remind you that you matter. Your role as a mother can spread joy, beauty, and love throughout the world. When you take care of yourself and you love yourself, we get the gift of you in your most beautiful essence. When you do the work to break through the pain in your life, you can be there more deeply to help your children to do the same. And that is evolution through mothering. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. And now I'll hand it over to Molly.
So this song, it really speaks to me and the little girls that we are raising and that are watching us as women and mothers. And so here goes. Throw a stone into the water, making circles for young girls. Stones can harm you, stones will heal you. Choose them wisely, change the world. Throw a stone into the water, making circles for young girls. Stones can harm you, stones will heal you. Choose them wisely, change the world. Okay, so then there's another one that really speaks to me in regards to women and giving birth and the lives that we lead. Yes, it just really, really speaks to me, and especially spoke to me in this last pregnancy with Thomas. So that was something that was very different from my first two pregnancies. This third pregnancy, I was surrounded by women that were incredibly supportive and loving and giving and guiding that I had never had before. Giving birth 1,000 times, giving birth 1,000 times, to be a mother of so much, to be a mother of so much. This life, I'm the spindle of this life. This life, I'm the spindle of this life. It moves so quickly, it moves so fast. It moves so quickly, it moves so fast. There will be stillness, but not yet. There will be stillness, but not yet. This life, I'm the spindle of this life. Giving birth 1,000 times, giving birth 1,000 times, to be a mother of so much, to be a mother of so much. This life, I'm the spindle of this life. It moves so quickly, it moves so fast. It moves so quickly, it moves so fast. There will be stillness, but not yet. There will be stillness, but not yet. This life, I'm the spindle of this life. I really love sharing and singing songs, and it's my favorite part of our women's circle here at my home each month, and the women's circle, the singing circles that I attend. Weave and spin, weave and spin. This is how our work begins. Mend and heal, mend and heal. Take the dream and make it real. Weave and spin, weave and spin. This is how our work begins. Mend and heal, mend and heal. Take the dream and make it real. Weave and spin, weave and spin. This is how our work begins. Mend and heal, mend and heal. Take the dream and make it real. Weave and spin, weave and spin. This is how our work begins.